Wonderful. Well, welcome everybody to the first Friday entrepreneurship call with K-State Research and Extension. The purpose of our call is to increase the local community's knowledge of the experts, the education, and the economic resources available to help small businesses and the communities who love them. As always, the call is being recorded, and you will get a link to the website when it's posted. I'll also put it in the chat in a moment, along with a copy of Bridgette's presentation deck. After 6.5 years of First Friday calls, our average monthly views has grown from 14 to 140. And we think that that means that you value this call, but we are a research organization and we value the research. And so I'm trying to capture some data. And a number of you were kind enough to give me some data from the last couple calls. And so this time I'm just going to build on that. Maybe we've landed on a set of questions that we'll use every time. We'll see what the quality of the answers are. So I'm going to teach to the test and tell you what it is I'm going to be asking you at the end of the call. I think that you're taking notes. And so basically, I want you to think about a call to action. Did you learn something today that you can use immediately? You know, what are you putting in those notes? Did you learn something today that you can use immediately? Yes or no? How many people will you forward this information to? You may not be the person who needs to know this. Did you learn something today that you need to forward to others? And how many others will you forward it to? And then lastly, what did you learn today that was most helpful to you? And all of this data is going to be shared with Bridgette. She needs to know what it is that you found interesting and important so that she can build on that in her future calls. So did you learn something that you can use immediately? How many people will you forward the information to? And what did you learn that was most helpful to you? In 50 characters or less. I'm not asking for a big report. So easy, simple, 10 seconds is what I'm asking from you. So today's speaker, I'm very excited about this, and from the registrations, I think that you were too. What can Kansas tourism do for your town's economic development? And we're going to hear from Bridgette Jobe, the Kansas Tourism Director. So Bridgette, take it away.
All right. Thank you, Nancy. Thank you for inviting me. I love, there's nothing I love more than being able to talk about tourism and Kansas. And so this is just perfect. Just to kind of introduce myself, as Nancy said, my name is Bridgette Jobe, and I have been with the state of Kansas and with Kansas tourism for about 3.5 years now. Before that, I spent about 21 years as the Kansas City, Kansas, at the Kansas City, Kansas CVB, and the majority of those years were as the director. And it was really there that I kind of found my love for the tourism industry, for tourism management. And I was also very privileged to be part of seeing how tourism could change a community. When Wyandotte County, many of you know, that had been a county that had really struggled, and through some very specific projects, we were able to really turn that community around and make it a tourism destination. So what I thought I would do today is kind of talk a little bit about what Kansas tourism does, talk a little bit about why tourism matters, both to the state and to your communities, and then talk about some of the trends that we are seeing in tourism. And I want to leave plenty of time for questions at the end. A lot of times people will ask me, what is it that you do? What do you really do? And I used to get this question when I was in Kansas City, Kansas. And sometimes it's hard to describe to people. You know, we do the marketing, we do the PR, we do all of these things. But when you boil it down, what I get to do every day is I get to come to work. I get to come up with new ways and exciting ways to invite people to come visit, maybe live, maybe just come and spend some money, but I get to invite them to come to a state, to a community that I love. And there's really not a better job. I truly believe that I have one of the best jobs in the world to be able to do that every day and find new ways to tell people how much I love Kansas and how important it is for them to come and visit. So I always like to start these presentations with what I think is our foundation. And that is, what is our mission? Why do we exist? So the mission of the Kansas Tourism Division is to inspire travel to and throughout Kansas to maximize the positive impacts that tourism has on our state and on local communities. And every word in that mission is very thought out. We inspire travel. We're not in the business of arranging travel. We are in the business of inspiring people to come here. We want them to come to Kansas, and we want Kansans to travel throughout Kansas. And we know that there are a lot of positive impacts that affect our state and our local communities. And if we are successful in carrying out that mission, our vision for Kansas is a better quality of life for all Kansans through a strong travel industry and economic prosperity. We want to ensure that all travelers are welcomed and that they are provided the resources they need to create awe-inspiring experiences. So we know that if we carry out our mission of inspiring travel, that it is a quality of life issue for Kansans. So I'm going to go over this list that's up on your screen of all the things that we do. But before I do that, let me explain a little bit about how we are structured. So we are a division of the Department of Commerce. And prior to July 1st of 2021, for about 10 years, we had been a division of the Department of Wildlife, Parks, and Tourism. But Governor Kelly, in realizing that tourism is economic development and that it needed to be part of our economic development agency, for about the last year and a half, almost 2 years now, we have been a division of the Department of Commerce. I report directly to the Secretary of Commerce, who's also our Lieutenant Governor. And we have about 10 members, staff team members based here in Topeka. And then I have a few more at our Travel Information Center in Goodland. And then we contract for the Belle Plaine TIC staff, but we oversee all the operations there as well. So a lot of times people have questions on how are we funded. There are no general dollar funds that go to fund tourism in Kansas, and we do not collect any of the transient guest tax. You're probably familiar with that hotel or bed tax. Those dollars go to local communities to help support their local efforts, but we do not receive any of those dollars. So our funding all comes through EDIF, which is lottery funds, or through fee funds and partnerships that we create. This year for FY23, we have an operating budget of about $4.8 million. I will tell you with that, we are one of the lowest funded state tourism offices. It's a challenge that we have. It takes money to market. And we do have hopefully an enhancement of about 2.2 million that will be in, it's in the governor's budget for FY24. And out of that 2.2 million, about half will go for grants and about half will go for marketing. So if you look at the screen here, these are all the programs that we cover. We do all marketing efforts to visitors for Kansas. That includes things like our annual travel guide, our website, travelks.com, which is a very important website for you to know about. I'm going to talk a lot about it today. I hope you go to it on a regular basis. We also do all paid advertising, and that can be broadcast, radio, digital, social media. We do all of that. We also have a very expansive PR and media efforts where we are hosting travel journalists, travel writers. We are bringing the media to Kansas to find out more and then to write about more about that. So we do all marketing efforts to visitors. We also produce the Kansas magazine. I hope a lot of you are subscribers. This is a subscription lifestyle magazine. And people always ask me, what's the difference between the travel guide and Kansas magazine? The travel guide tells you what there is to do in Kansas. This is great for visitors, for people who are looking to explore Kansas. Kansas magazine is more where you want to go more in depth into those people, those places in Kansas that make it so special. I mentioned that we manage the two state travel information centers in Goodland and Belle Plaine. We also manage the Kansas Byways program. We have 12 byways in Kansas. So we work with all of those local communities. We produce a byways guide every other year. We do everything that we can to help support our byways in Kansas. We also manage the Kansas Agritourism program. Agritourism, if you're not familiar with that, that is when agricultural businesses offer some type of visitor activity that helps support and promote rural agriculture. And so it could be anything from a pumpkin patch to a winery to a barn that's been turned into an event barn. It could be hunting lodges, hunting areas. We have, I believe we're at 445 agritourism businesses that we have in Kansas right now. We also have tourism grant programs, and this is something that's probably going to be of great interest to you. We provide annually 2 different grant programs. One is called the Attraction Development Grant, and that is where we are looking to help promote and help develop new attractions or to develop those expansions to existing attractions. And this year we'll give about $400,000 in grants. I mentioned that we are looking for an enhancement next year. And if we do give that enhancement, we will be giving $1 million every year from now on in those attraction development grants. They are open now. These close at the end of this month, and we'll make an announcement right around the 1st of May. We also have another grant program that we call our marketing grant, and that is to help folks who are trying new marketing efforts. I saw a couple of our tourism people on here. I saw Kylie and Roger and a couple people, and when they are looking to do something new, try something a little bit different to market, those are really the types of projects that we are looking for. We want to help get them off the ground and get them moving with those marketing grants. Another thing that we oversee, and this is a partnership with KDOT, that is the tourism signage. If you are driving through Kansas and you see those blue logoed signs or you see those brown directional signages on the highway, the process starts with us. We don't make all the decisions. Obviously, KDOT has to be very involved with this, and safety is of great concern, but we are very involved in that, and we want to get signage because we know the value of getting people off the highway and into communities. And then one of the probably the most important things that we do is tourism industry support and education. We have so many of our partners throughout the states that are working at CVBs or chambers or economic development organizations across the state that are promoting and marketing to tourists. And so we want to provide them with the education and the support that we need. One of the ways that we do that is through an annual tourism conference we partner with TIAC, which is the Travel Industry Association of Kansas. And every October, we put on a 3-day, 2.5-day conference where we bring in speakers. How can we do this better? Where we share best practices. Another thing that we do is every month we do a meeting, which is very similar to this. We call them our tourism huddles, and we bring on a group of tourism folks from across the state, and we talk about timely and important issues that are going on in the tourism industry. So those are open to everybody, but just some of the ways that we provide support and education. So one of the areas I mentioned that we cover is marketing of Kansas to visitors. And so I want to share with you first a little bit about our marketing campaign and taglines. When I first came to Kansas tourism 3.5 years ago, I guess it's been, I knew we had to update how we presented Kansas to visitors. And through a very long process, we rebranded Kansas tourism and the state in a way that spoke not only to residents, but it also gave us an avenue to inspire visitors who wanted to explore our state. So based on our state motto of Ad Astra per Aspera, to the stars was born. And it is aspirational, but it also gives us a lot of room to expand. So you're going to see to the stars in all the marketing that we do. So I can talk a lot about this, but I think a much easier way to show you is what is the foundation for all the marketing of Kansas that we do. This is the Kansas that we like sharing with our visitors.
In Kansas, you will see stars, and not just the kind that line a boulevard. It's not our nature to celebrate ourselves. We celebrate real luminaries. Those that light up our night sky, and those who brighten our landscapes. In Kansas, we love fast cars and slow-cooked brisket. We touch the sky, but stay grounded in the things that matter most. We live out loud and embrace the solace of silence. We conquer rocks and celebrate on the rocks. We ride like the wind and live for the water. The Kansas experience is a salute to the real, to the rowdy, to the wide-eyed wanderers, to the dreamers, to the stars.
Sorry. So that just gives you kind of an idea of how we market. We do this in so many different ways, but that look, that feel, the opportunities that are present in Kansas is what we are always trying to share. So I believe that all good marketing decisions are based on good data. So everything that we do from Kansas Tourism, it's based on the research that we do. We're always wanting to find out where are our visitors coming from? What are their perceptions of Kansas? What are they doing when they get here? How much are they spending? How are they getting here? And then we want to know what's that economic impact of tourism and where are opportunities for growth. So we do several annual and sometimes every other year studies that help answer those questions. And up on your screen is a list of the types of data that we are constantly looking at. And some of these are available for you to use. So annually, we have a study done that shows the economic impact of the tourism industry on the state of Kansas. And then every other year, we break that down by region and county. So the last year data that we have countywide is 2021. And on this county data, you can look up by county and find out what is spent on lodging, on food and beverage. You can find out what the visitor spending is in your county. You can find out how many tourism employees you have in your county. And it's going to show you growth year over year. Plus, it's going to show your share of the region and your share of the state. So it's really good information that you can use. And if you see this link that's here at the bottom, I know you can't look on that, but you can write it down on Travel Chaos. All of that is up on our website. You just have to go to it and you can look at all of that. And then over the past couple of years, we've conducted a visitor profile study that tells us about who are our visitors, where are they coming from, what are they doing when they're here. And that is up on our website that you can look at. Plus, we have done a brand perception study, and it really gives us insights into both what residents and also potential out-of-state visitors, what do they think about Kansas? And again, all of those are available up on our website for you to look at. We also track monthly lodging data through SDR. We track the transient guest tax collections. Those are good ways for us to monitor and to see how the tourism industry is doing. Plus, we use a company called Datafy, and that helps us monitor travel in real time through cell phone and sales data. And so it really helps us analyze in real time those traveler trends and what is happening. So for some of these programs that are that I just mentioned, that can help you capture your local city data, we have some partnerships that we can work with you. If you want to partner with Datafy, it's fairly expensive to do, but we do have a partnership where we can help cover some of those costs. You can also break down to your city, take the annual economic impact of tourism in Kansas report, have it broken down to your city numbers. There's a small cost for that, but again, we try to help cover that to help you have the best data that you can get for your local community. So let me tell you what we've learned from some of the data that we have done. So our last economic impact report has 2021 data. And this is what we know from 2021. We had 33.7 million visitors, and those visitors spent $7 billion while they were in our state. And of that, those dollars that they spent, it produced over 60,000 direct jobs. Then when you start adding in the indirect and the induced jobs, it's over 84,000 jobs in Kansas are because of the tourism industry. Another way to look at that is 1 out of every 22 jobs in the state have to do with tourism. We also know that over $1.3 billion in revenues for our government were raised from visitor spending, visitor supported jobs, and business sales. And that's both state and federal. So people always say, how does that affect me directly? If it wasn't for tourism and the taxes that it generated, each household in Kansas would have to be taxed an additional $613 to replace those taxes generated by that visitor activity. I like to share this chart because a lot of people always have questions. What do you mean by direct, indirect, induced? You guys might know this, but I think it's a really good chart because those direct expenses are those visitor purchases, the food that they buy, the lodging, those direct expenses. But then those indirect and induced are that supply chain, the housing for the employees, the local taxes and local purchases that are collected. And so I think you can see how this works and how tourism dollars are important to every community. You'll hear me say quite often, and in fact, everybody here at the Department of Commerce will say this all the time, that every new resident and every new business starts with a visit. If you want to attract a new business to your community, the first thing that's going to happen is that business owner is going to come visit your community. They're going to be a visitor. And they're not only going to be looking for a location for their business and all the other logistical things that they need for that, but they are looking for quality of life for themselves and for their employees. So we really see tourism as that welcome committee for capital investment. So one of the things that I get asked quite often is, what are the trends that I am seeing in tourism and what are the opportunities? So I think the pandemic taught us a couple of things, and maybe it didn't teach us, maybe we always knew this, but it reminded us. I think it reminded us that everything in the tourism industry can change very quickly. We have to be very, very nimble. And that is why data and research is so important to making good marketing decisions and good decisions about what tourism business should you have in your community, when should it open, how should you market it. It's really important to have that good data. But I think the other thing that the pandemic reminded us in the tourism industry is that we need the traveling public. We need people to move. We need people to go into our restaurants and spend money and travel from one community to the next. Our economy just relies upon it. And, Kansas had some definite challenges during the pandemic, and we're still working to fully recover. Although I will tell you that our lodging numbers is back or it is exceeding 2019 levels. And 2019 was a really good year for us. So we feel really good about what we are seeing. But I also know that we fared a lot better than many other states through the pandemic, and parts of Kansas were challenged more than others. Some communities in Kansas, especially some of our more rural communities, actually thrived during the pandemic as folks were traveling in different ways. So some of the trends that I have up on the board here, many of these had really started before the pandemic, but I think the pandemic accelerated them. We knew that coming out of the pandemic, the recovery schedule was going to be, we were going to see leisure travel first. Leisure travels, mom, dad, the kids wanting to get out, and that came back first. What we saw next was those youth sports. Youth sports is huge in Kansas, and we saw those families continuing to travel for those youth sports. What we knew would come back last is meetings and conventions. But I will tell you, I have been to more meetings and conventions. I'm looking at so many that are being held in Kansas this year. We are on a really good track to our meeting and convention business coming back. We know that travelers are looking for simplicity. They're getting back to their roots, visiting friends and family. And that's always been something in Kansas that has been big for us. But people are also looking on simpler ways to travel. They want itineraries that are already made. They don't want to think hard about what am I going to do when I come to Kansas. We also know that more people are willing to drive than before. I think some of the challenges with the airlines recently, and we've always been a drive state, but I think that is playing to our advantage now that people are much more willing to drive to a destination. We also saw it start during the pandemic, that willingness to explore outdoor activities. In the past 2 or 3 years, our state parks have had some of their best years. And we're talking about how do we keep that momentum going with our state parks, because I think people are willing to travel closer to home and they are willing to explore their home state. One of my favorite memories from the pandemic was hearing all the feedback of Kansans as they were exploring Kansas. And I think that's going to continue. Another trend that we are seeing that I think the pandemic really accelerated are those short-term rentals or that non-traditional lodging. You're seeing the Airbnbs, the Verbos, glamping has just grown so much. And so I know that that is a challenge sometimes to communities, to how do you monitor that and how do you control that? But you are seeing more and more of that non-traditional lodging. And then I'm always looking at different reports that I get that are talking about what are the greatest concerns affecting traveler decisions. And, you know, during the COVID, it was, everyone would said, oh, it was health concerns, and that was very high. But right now, what we're seeing is only about 15% of Americans are saying that COVID will actually greatly impact their travel decisions. What we're seeing more is about 57% of Americans say that concerns about their personal financial situation or transportation cost will affect their travel decisions. And that's probably not a big surprise to anyone, but the way I look at this is, what opportunity does that give us? Kansas continues to be a lower cost state to travel in. We're looking at doing more marketing closer to home, you know, so that people maybe don't have to spend quite as much to travel as far. But we know that there are some major changes in how people are making those travel decisions. So I want to make sure that I leave plenty of time for questions. So there's one more thing I want to share with you. And it's a little bit on some of the ways that we market. So about 3 years ago, Kansas Tourism decided to claim Kansas Day as our own. January 29th is Kansas's birthday. And so every year on Kansas Day, we release a new video that in some way highlights Kansas, and it will work to help change perceptions that people may have of our state. So if I would have known that Ron Wilson was going to be on here, I would have played last year's, but you'll have to go and watch, because Ron Wilson, one of his poems was featured last year. But for 2023, what we decided to do was to take Kansas Day as an opportunity to celebrate the birthday of our state song, Home on the Range. And we asked 5 Kansas artists to help us by providing their versions of the song. So I'm going to play you our video that we unveiled, and then I'll talk a little bit more about where you can see more.
Oh, give me a home where the buffalo roam, where the deer and the antelope play, where seldom is heard a discouraging word, and the skies are not cloudy all day. Home, home on the range, where the deer and the antelope play, where seldom is heard a discouraging word, and the skies are not cloudy all day. How often at night, when the heavens are bright with the lights from the glittering stars, have I stood here amazed and asked as I gazed if their glory exceeds that of ours? Home on the range, where the deer and the antelope play, where seldom is heard a discouraging word, and the skies are not cloudy all day.
So on this page, you can see what we did is we worked with 5 Kansas artists, and you can see their names. If you can still see this up on the screen. We worked with the Get Up Kids, Maria the Mexican, Andy McKee, Logan Mize, and XV, and they all created their own version of Home on the Range. We had everything from XV, who's out of Wichita, doing a rap song, to Maria the Mexican to put some of that salsa feel on it, Logan Mize doing the country version, Get Up Kids, kind of a 90s emo rock version, and Andy McKee doing completely instrumental on his guitar. It has been fantastic. I encourage you to go and watch all of those and look at them and follow all of theirs. They each have videos that share their story of why they love Kansas. So I want to stop there and just leave a few minutes for questions. I see I haven't had my chat open. So I don't know if there's been any questions in here, or if anyone would like to just ask some questions.
Just lots of compliments, Bridgette. Just lots of compliments.
I love it. I love it. That's fantastic. And all of these videos, when you guys are sharing, we encourage you to share them. One other thing I didn't mention is our 6 regions in Kansas. We have 6 regional organizations, and we have branded each of those 6 regions using kind of our to the stars format and feel. And that's how we help brand each of the 6 regions. We know that Kansas is a big state, and a visitor who is flying into Northeast Kansas may not have the time or to get to Northwest Kansas. And we know that each of these regions have kind of their own personality and highlights. And so we really try to bring those out a little bit. So we have a lot of regional marketing that we do. I don't know if there's any questions.
I have
Bridgette,
one question.
Heather wants to know, do you have any services or materials specifically for Airbnb or Vrbo or bed and breakfast owners?
Sure. And by materials, I'm not sure exactly what you mean. Are you talking about information as to help them get set up, or what type of information?
Well, any of the above. And then just, I obviously feel like I could do some things with my Instagram or Facebook account, but just to kind of link in and be more in touch with you all. This was a great presentation for me. So I just was wanting to share.
Great. Yeah. One of the things that I think is really important, and I think for anyone who's running an Airbnb or any of those non-traditional lodging, the importance is to make sure that you are connecting with your local DMO, your destination marketing organization, whether you have a CVB or a chamber or whoever it is in your community or in your region that is responsible for marketing your community. Make sure that they know who you are and that you are there. Have their literature in your Airbnb. One of the things that I think is so important is that everyone has a state travel guide. I think every resident of Kansas should have a state travel guide on their coffee table, because as people come over and pick it up and look at that, there's so much that they can learn. So I think having those relationships is very important. Also making sure that the DMO is working and reaching out to those that are providing lodging and making sure that they have just a great relationship. And I think on the marketing, one of the things that we can help probably through our huddles, through our conference, we have different speakers who come in that really try to work and help educate some of our partners on better ways to market using some of those social media outlets.
Bridgette, Heather and two other B&B or Verbo owners, hosts will be our next caller. And if you think that Kansas Travel could add something to the discussion next month, we welcome you to do a little background and think about, you know, how can we elevate
Sure.
their topic.
Yeah, no, I think that'd be great. I'd love to work with you, Nancy, on doing something with that.
That'd be great. Okay, so Marcia Toller says, I will be helping to obtain funding from grants and other resources for the Quindaro ruins in Wyandotte County. Have you worked with anyone involved with the Quindaro ruins?
Well, I am a KCK girl, so yes, I do. Quindaro ruins have, and I have a great passion for the Quindaro ruins, and I think the story that they tell that is so instrumental, not just to Wyandotte County, but to the state of Kansas and to the U.S. Really. I'd be glad to, Marcia, reach out with you, and if you have my contact information on here, I'd be glad to talk with you about more ways that we could work with Quindaro ruins. In fact, I just had a conversation a couple of days ago, ran into Marvin Robinson over at the Capitol, and we were talking about it. So I'd be glad to have a conversation, Marcia, offline with you about ways that I could possibly help support.
That'd be great. Thank you.
All right.
Good. And yeah, you can ask her the question about a good Kansas historian. Tayton wonders, how are the communities selected? I didn't notice any from Southeast Kansas. Tayton, is that about for the videos? Yes. Tayton says.
Okay. Yeah. So we tried to be as inclusive of Kansas as we can. We have multiple videos. What I've showed you today is 2. We have so many. We just released part of our story series about 2 weeks ago, and it's on Gordon Parks from Fort Scott, and we are really highlighting that. So if you didn't see your community in one of these videos, know that we have so many more of them. We can't show all of Kansas in every video. We usually try to be as diverse and as inclusive as we can all across the state, but just know that we have so many more than what I showed you today.
That's great. And I've put it in there a couple of times, your YouTube channel, but
Right.
Including your data link. And so if anybody doesn't know how to save the chat, the instructions, I just put them in there. Click the chat, and then go to the ellipsis in the bottom of your chat window, and right click it, and it will save to your it will save the chat to your local drive. And that even tells you what folder to look into, because it's a little bit of a weird place that it puts it.
Sure. And I saw a question here from Nathan. And Nathan, I heard you talking a little bit earlier about the hub, which just opened, and I wrote myself a note to make sure we have that on our one of our listings. So we may be reaching out to you to get more information. But you were asking if we help fund large outdoor billboards. We do help fund billboards through our marketing grant. But what we're always looking for is to help promote the destination, like the community, and or a major event that is going to bring visitors from outside. So you put in here community events. That's a little bit different than visitor events, but we would totally look at that. If you are pulling people from outside the area, that might be something that we would look at with our marketing grants.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Who's the best person to contact about that?
That would be me right now because my grant person has actually taken another position right in the middle of when we are having open grants. But I have someone new coming on in a couple of weeks. But I am the best person right now, Nathan. All
Thanks
right,
for,
I'm not sure that I'm seeing any more questions, Nancy.
yeah, thanks for catching that one. I missed that one. And I would remind Nathan and everyone on the call, if that grant doesn't work out, K-State Research and Extension Community Vitality Specialist will send us an email and we'll help look for a grant for that or any other thing, you know, like what's available right now on the databases for community bulletin boards, how much money do I need, and what is the purpose? So that or anything else. Yeah, I don't see any other questions. The information here, yes, I'll send you the information. It's ksrecv@ksu.edu. Is that, Deanna? I think that's what you were asking about. Okay. Yes. Okay. Was there any other questions? I thought I heard Ron Wilson's voice once trying to insert a question. So, yes, thank you so much, Bridgette. That was awesome. And we'll work about next month. So next month, as we said, the topic is creating Airbnbs to support a vibrant economic development. You know, whether it's for trails or for local events. I think Bridgette's point that people are concerned about the economic impact for traveling, but it doesn't have to be expensive. And I love what you said about simple trips. I mean, most of us don't travel because there are so many choices. So we need somebody to give us something free and quick, not free, but quick and easy to say, okay, there it is. I'm going to take that trip. And I can accomplish it easy. So next month, Heather Minnick, Leanne Saylor, and Diane Dietz will tell us about their experiences with creating Airbnbs in local communities. And this is our sharing time then. And if anybody has anything they want to share about anything that's upcoming in your world, please take a moment to unmute. And while you're thinking about what you might share, let me remind you that we have grant workshops that are ongoing. And this year, a new feature that we've added is something called a micro-credential badge. And so if you not only participate, but do the homework that proves that you learned 3 things, why we'll give you an electronic micro-credential badge that might be helpful to you as a professional development tool. It was really gratifying when our very first micro-credential earners, and she gave me permission to quote her, Heather Beasley, the Altamont City Clerk, said, "This class and all of your information has given me more information and useful tools than any other grant webinar or certification I've done in the past." So she's our very first earner. And to sign up, it's $60. We have 5 more classes this year, and they're all online. If you're wondering about First Friday, what's coming up next in the calendar, they're all there at the Community Vitality Events page. And then lastly, something new that K-State Research and Extension Media has done for us is to create an event page on the K-State Research and Extension Facebook page. And they will be creating one for both the grant workshops and the First Fridays. And if you would like to if you have a Facebook page like Nathan does, at the Mound Ridge Library and would like to easily post it to your websites, put your email address in the chat and I will get it from that chat, or send me an email at that email address that I gave you, KSRECV, and I'll get it. Just tell us about your, what I need is your email address, not your website, but thank you. So send me your email address and I'll add you to the event group. Okay, does anybody want to share anything that you haven't had a chance to share? I usually end with an inspiring quote, but today it's we have an announcement that Flint Hills Festival is Saturday, May 6th at the Flint Hills Discovery Center. It's completely free. Looking for more partners. Today's quote for the day is a word of comfort, and that is that only Robinson Crusoe had everything done by Friday. So we'll see you next month. Thanks for joining us.